The Young and the Restless spoilers Victoria had always trusted her instincts. In a world where secrets festered behind every corporate handshake and every family dinner held a hidden agenda, she had learned to read between the lines with ruthless precision. So when Cole returned from the shadows of her past with a renewed smile and an air of enigmatic calm, she knew something was wrong. It wasn't just the way he spoke, carefully chosen words, rehearsed but meant to sound spontaneous. It was the way he moved, the way Claire clung to him not like a daughter reunited with her father, but like a soldier following her commanding officer. Even Kane's recent reappearance in Genoa City struck her as oddly timed, almost too convenient. She pretended to be caught up in the whirlwind of reunions and revelations, but beneath the facade, her mind worked like a sharpened blade, dissecting each moment, each look, each whisper. The puzzle didn't fit. Something was off. And Victoria was determined to find out what it was, even if the answers destroyed everything. Her search took her far from the gleaming towers of Newman Enterprises and the familiar chaos of the Abbott and Chancellor families. She flew to France under the pretense of a spontaneous vacation, carefully ensuring no one tracked her movements. Armed with little more than suspicion and a burner phone, she followed a trail of quiet transactions and encrypted messages that led her to Nice. A city known for its charm, art, and light, but which now held the shadows of a truth darker than anything she had imagined. There, in the narrow maze of the old quarter, she found it, a reinforced steel door tucked behind a rusted alleyway, camouflaged with vines and forgotten graffiti. She watched from a distance, heart pounding as she saw Cole emerge, followed by Claire and, shockingly, Kane. They weren't just visiting. They lived here. Not in a villa or a hotel. They lived in an underground bunker beneath the city, hidden from the world, beneath the very feet of unsuspecting civilians going about their daily lives. It was monstrous. It was insane. It was real. With her breath caught in her throat and her mind racing with the implications, Victoria crept closer, hugging the shadows, slipping through a side entrance left ajar. The inside of the bunker was nothing like she expected. It wasn't crude or hastily constructed. It was organized, clinical, and disturbingly well-equipped. Computers hummed softly in the background, medical equipment gleamed under artificial light, and surveillance monitors displayed live feeds from what appeared to be multiple cities. This wasn't a hideout. It was a headquarters. And whatever was being orchestrated here, it wasn't meant for the public eye. Her fingers brushed across a table strewn with documents. Some with Newman letterheads, others with old court records, photographs of Newman board members, Chancellor executives, even Nick and Adam. Her entire world was under surveillance. They weren't just observing. They were planning. Targeting. Manipulating. And that's when it happened. A glass clinked behind her, loud in the silence. Her elbow had nudged a tray. The sound was enough. Alarms didn't go off, but the subtle shift in air pressure told her someone was coming. She turned to flee, but it was too late. The heavy metal door at the end of the corridor slammed open. Cole stood there, fury burning in his eyes, his charming facade stripped away to reveal something far colder. Claire was beside him, her expression unreadable, her loyalty unmistakable. Kane brought up the rear, eyes narrowed, jaw tight, no longer the aimless businessman but a man deeply entrenched in something unforgivable. Without a word, they rushed toward her. She ran, feet pounding against the concrete floor, heart slamming against her ribs. She reached the outer door, fingers fumbling with the latch, but strong arms caught her from behind. She screamed, but a hand covered her mouth. Rope bound her wrists. A cloth gag silenced her protests. Darkness swallowed her. They dragged her back inside, not with violence but with the cold efficiency of people who had rehearsed this before. They didn't speak until she was tied to a chair, the gag pulled just far enough for her to breathe but not enough to scream. Cole crouched in front of her, eyes level with hers, and for a long, agonizing moment, said nothing. Then he smiled, a twisted, empty smile, and whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." Victoria tried to speak, but the pressure on her throat made it impossible. Her eyes screamed instead. She demanded answers, justice, truth. But Cole gave her none of those. Instead, he warned her, if she made a sound, if she ever thought of exposing them, she would vanish like so many others. No body. No trace. No story. Just a cautionary tale. It wasn't just a threat. It was a promise. Because Cole was no longer the man she had once loved. He was something else now, something molded by years in the shadows, by pain, by betrayal, by revenge. And he wasn't alone. Claire, though hesitant, did nothing to stop him. Kane watched in silence, arms crossed, neither approving nor resisting. Victoria had uncovered a conspiracy so vast and vile that it defied belief. These weren't just people with grudges. They were orchestrators of a silent war. And now she was a prisoner to the very truth she had sought to expose. Hours passed. Days blurred. Victoria remained bound, her body aching, her mind sharp. They fed her. They checked her restraints. But they never left her completely alone. One of them always watched. And in that time, she learned more. She overheard plans, moves against Newman Enterprises, coordinated releases of false information, manipulation of stock markets, character assassinations. They spoke of faking deaths, rewriting identities, blackmailing high-ranking officials. And always, at the center, was Cole. Calm. Calculated. Unforgiving. Yet even in despair, Victoria's resolve grew. She began to listen closely, memorize details, count the minutes of each rotation of her guards. She studied Claire's body language, the slight tremble when she walked past, the way her fingers lingered over old photographs, the way her gaze dropped whenever Cole gave an order. There was doubt there. A crack in the armor. And if there was a way out of this, it would begin with that crack. But she had to survive first. She had to wait. Cole sensed her defiance. One night, after a particularly long silence, he approached her again. No smile this time. Just a knife held low, not pressed to her skin, but close enough to convey intent. If you ever tell anyone, he said, no one will believe you. And if they do, they'll be dead before they can act. His voice was soft. Controlled. Deadly. And then he turned, leaving her once more in darkness. But Victoria was done being afraid. What she had seen, the truth she now carried, was too great to die for. She would escape. She would expose them. And when she did, the fallout would be seismic. The war had already begun. The only question was, who would survive it? Let me know if you'd like me to continue with Victoria's escape and retaliation, or if you'd like to shift focus to another character like Nick, Adam, or even Audra's involvement. Pain settled into every corner of Victoria's body, but it was nothing compared to the weight crushing her heart. The ache in her limbs from being restrained, the sting of her lips chafed raw from the gag, the strain in her back from hours of immobility, none of it compared to the devastation of realizing that the two people she had once trusted, once loved in different lifetimes, had become unrecognizable monsters. She stared across the bunker, eyes hollow, mouth dry, as Cole and Claire loomed like strangers forged from shadow and resentment. Gone were the warm memories of the past. The late-night conversations, the touches, the promises, the fragile attempts to rebuild what was broken. In their place stood people consumed by something dark and calculating, faces contorted not with regret, but with cold fury and a thirst for control. It wasn't just betrayal. It was transformation. They had allowed themselves to evolve into predators, and now, Victoria was their prey. When they approached again, she didn't flinch. She had cried enough. The tears had dried on her cheeks like salt left behind by crashing waves. Her voice trembled at first but grew stronger as she summoned everything inside her that still clung to dignity and courage. You can tie me up, you can threaten me, she said, her words ragged but clear, but I will tell the world. People will come. They will look for me. You will never be able to hide what you've done, not forever. This, whatever this sick delusion is, it ends. I swear to God, it ends the second I walk out of here. For a moment, silence filled the bunker, stretching like a chasm between what once was and what could never be again. But then, the fury came. Cole's eyes blazed, and Claire's mouth twisted into something venomous. In a flash, the air was no longer still but violently charged. Claire stormed forward, her voice rising to a scream as she leaned down, face inches from Victoria's. You're not walking out of here. You don't get to act like the victim after everything you've done. You don't get to expose us and pretend you're righteous. Her scream echoed off the cold concrete walls, vibrating through Victoria's bones. But it was Cole's voice that followed, a voice colder than ice, devoid of emotion, stripped of humanity. You talk like you matter. Like you still have power. But you don't, Victoria. You're not a Newman here. You're just a problem. And problems get eliminated. Victoria recoiled. Not from fear, but from the sheer horror of the words. Had he truly said that? Had Cole, the man she once shared her bed and her secrets with, just threatened to kill her in the same tone he would use to order coffee? She searched his eyes for something, remorse, hesitation, memory, but there was nothing. Just emptiness. The kind of soulless void that no longer recognized love, or morality, or mercy. And then she looked at Claire, hoping against all logic that the young woman who once reached out for family, who once cried in Victoria's arms, might show an ounce of compassion. But Claire's face was stone. Her fury was real. And her loyalty was no longer to truth or justice, but to the madness they had built together in this underground prison. Do you even hear yourselves? Victoria choked out. Do you hear what you've become? Cole, you were a writer, a dreamer, a man who swore never to lose himself to bitterness. Claire. I gave you a home. I defended you. I believed in you when no one else did. And this is what I get? Tied up like an animal? Threatened like trash? Her voice cracked, a tremor of disbelief threading through the resolve. You disgust me. Both of you. The words landed like daggers, but neither Cole nor Claire flinched. Cole moved closer, his hand resting on the back of Victoria's chair as he leaned down. Spare me your sanctimony, he hissed. You think your version of love was anything but control? You manipulated, you judged, you pushed people away and called it loyalty. Don't pretend you're innocent now that the world you built is crumbling. He stood up, pacing slowly. You talk about truth, but the truth is, no one will mourn you. You're not some hero. You're a liability. And if you force our hand, there will be no second chance. Claire remained in the background, her breath ragged, her knuckles white as she clenched her fists. There was something flickering behind her eyes, doubt perhaps, but it was buried too deep beneath the rage. You were going to betray us the second you left this bunker, she spat. Don't lie. You would have turned us in without blinking. So don't talk about what we owe you. You never cared about me, just like everyone else. Victoria felt the walls closing in, not the concrete, but the moral collapse of everything she thought she knew. You're wrong, she whispered. I did care. I still care. But this isn't you. This is something else. Something sick. She looked between them, no longer pleading, no longer reasoning. Just tired. You're not just lost. You've become monsters. That word hung in the air, monsters, and it hit harder than any physical blow. For the briefest of moments, Claire's jaw quivered. Her gaze dropped to the floor, her body stiff. Cole, however, remained immovable, his eyes narrowing as if the truth had finally bored through his armor and revealed what he had become. But instead of remorse, it awakened rage. I warned you, he said, voice hollow. If you speak again, if you try to turn this into a redemption arc, you won't get another chance. Victoria stared back, unflinching. Then do it. Kill me. If that's who you are now. The moment froze. No one moved. No one breathed. It was as if time itself paused to see whether humanity would prevail, or perish completely. And then Claire turned and walked away, her steps uneven, her hands trembling. Cole watched her, jaw tight, rage boiling under the surface but held in check. He didn't kill her. Not yet. But the line had been crossed. And Victoria knew that the only way out was through blood, betrayal, or an act of mercy that might never come. Shall I continue with Victoria's attempt to escape, or her mind games to turn Claire against Cole? In the sun-washed elegance of Nice, the Mediterranean glittered like a jewel beneath the horizon, its surface calm and deceptive, much like the volatile storm simmering just beneath Devon's exterior as he stepped into the shaded courtyard where Amanda was seated alone. The weight of betrayal had followed him across the ocean, mingling with unanswered questions and shadows of Kane's sudden resurgence. Every step Devon took was fueled by suspicion, every breath by an aching bitterness that had grown louder ever since Kane's name began to reappear in cryptic conversations and veiled rumors. Now, seeing Amanda in this quiet corner of France, her hair gathered loosely, her demeanor poised but not unguarded, Devon no longer saw the woman who once steadied him. He saw a gatekeeper. A potential conspirator. Someone who might hold the key to a war he hadn't yet understood but instinctively feared. Amanda's eyes met his before he spoke, and in that brief exchange, she knew exactly what had brought him here. Devon didn't waste time on pleasantries. I need the truth, he said, voice low, rough with restrained tension. I need to know what Kane is doing, why he's back, what he's planning, and what the hell you're doing involved in all of this. Amanda didn't flinch. Instead, she took a slow sip of her espresso, then placed the cup down gently as if preparing herself not just for an interrogation, but for the excavation of wounds that never fully healed. Even if I did know, she said with calm, clipped precision, why would I tell you? Devon's jaw clenched. Because you owe me the truth. You owe it to the company, to the people who trust you, not to mention the family legacy that Kane's already tried to tear apart once. Amanda shook her head, a flicker of disbelief washing over her. You think this is about business, she asked. You think I would fly across the world to cover for someone unless there was more at stake than some boardroom paranoia? Her voice sharpened. Devon, whatever grievances you have with Kane, whatever history you're holding on to, it's yours. Not mine. And I will not betray someone who has never lied to me, not for you, not for anyone. The air between them turned brittle. Devon could feel the cracks reopening. This wasn't just about Kane. This was about old betrayals, lingering distrust, the way their relationship had once unraveled not from one catastrophe but a slow, deliberate bleed of miscommunication and moral arrogance. Amanda leaned forward, her eyes piercing. You want to talk about loyalty? Let's talk about what you did when I was standing by your side, how you second-guessed me, doubted me, judged me for things I couldn't control. You walked away when it got difficult. Kane didn't. Devon stepped back slightly, her words carving into him with surgical precision. So, no, she continued, voice quiet now but filled with steel. I'm not telling you a damn thing. Not because I can't. Because I won't. There was no denying the sting in her words. Devon tried again, this time softening the edge in his tone. Amanda. I'm not here to hurt you. I just need to understand what Kane is doing. If he's targeting Newman. If he's planning something against Chancellor. I need to know what he's after. Amanda's silence said everything. It wasn't just Kane's secrets she was protecting, it was herself. Her choices. The version of herself she had become since leaving Genoa City. She wasn't the woman who had once played by the rules, who lived in the shadow of her twin's legacy. She had forged her own path, and if that path now aligned with Kane's, she was prepared to defend it. But unbeknownst to both of them, there was someone else and nice, someone who had perfected the art of discovering secrets not meant to be known. Phyllis. She had arrived quietly, unannounced, on a hunch fueled by whispers and a pattern of suspicious activity she couldn't ignore. She had her reasons, she always did. Whether it was a gut instinct or a calculated desire to protect her own interests, Phyllis knew better than to dismiss oddities. And Amanda's presence in France, coinciding with Devon's sudden international detour and the mystery swirling around Kane's re-emergence, was far too convenient to be coincidence. Phyllis lingered in the same hotel, keeping a low profile, listening, watching. It was in the lounge, barely past midnight, that her instincts paid off. Amanda was alone, speaking in hushed tones on her phone, unaware that someone had slipped into the alcove just behind the potted palm tree. Phyllis strained her ears, catching fragments. I told him nothing. No, I didn't break. Yes, I still have it. The plan is intact. Then came the name, Kane. The syllable sliced through the night like a dagger. Phyllis froze, heart pounding. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was confirmation. Amanda was in contact with Kane. And he was here. Somewhere. Back in Genoa City, or perhaps moving between shadows in both countries. And judging by Amanda's tone, she was hiding something far more serious than a business deal. Phyllis knew better than to act immediately. She waited. She followed Amanda discreetly the next day and seized an opportunity while Amanda was away from her suite. Phyllis didn't need long. She'd always had a knack for bypassing locks, both literal and emotional. In Amanda's room, her fingers moved quickly across Amanda's phone, and though most messages were encrypted, a few recent previews flashed just long enough to leave no doubt. GC secure. Victor not yet aware. Hold position. They were short, cryptic, and damning. Phyllis didn't know the whole picture yet, but she saw enough to know this wasn't just about Kane returning to settle old scores. This was something larger. Strategic. Coordinated. And now she had a choice to make. Phyllis was no stranger to moral gray zones. She thrived in them. But even she felt the chill crawling down her spine. Because if Kane was moving against Victor, if Amanda was a willing participant, if Devon was left in the dark, then the entire fabric of power in Genoa City was about to be rewritten. The Chancellor fortune, Newman Enterprises, Abbott interests, all stood on shifting ground. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Kane Ashby held the match.